So, a seller net sheet. The beginning of this has to do with preparation and questions. So, questions that you might ask, questions that you might ask would be on the phone while you're talking to somebody. Do you have a loan? Yes or no? 1, 2, 3. How many loans do you have? Do you have any loans on your property? Number 2, how much are they? Now, you're going to see later, I'm going to show you there is a way to find out. Right? There's an easy, which is to find out how much the loan was when they got it. But if you have the right title company, they can tell you what the current loan amount is. But for purposes of the net sheet, how much is your loan? How big is your loan? Number 3 would be, what is your interest rate? And the reason that we want to know that, and first of all, many people are going to say, I don't know.
Really?
I don't really know. Right? People will say, I don't know. I'm just saying, people will say, I don't know.
Huh.
So if you're, people are going to say that, I don't know. So if they have like the stuff that they get from the mortgage company and they have a copy of it, I would tell them, great, we want to see that. Why do we want to know their interest rate? This is, by the way, just so you make clear, I'm going to talk about a seller's net sheet. Seller's net sheet. We're not talking about the buyer's.
Because that closed, you still have to prorate a partial month.
A partial month, right.
Payments, and most of my payments are interest.
Right, so the, Johnny got it right, because we're putting 2 points, that was a 2-pointer. I always include 1 month's worth of interest. And the reason is that if the worst case scenario is we close at the end of the month, and interest is paid in arrears, which means that when you make a payment on May 1st, you're paying for April's use of the money. And if you neglect to include the interest payment, which could be $4,000, right, it throws off your net sheet by, well, a lot, right? The goal of doing this is to be accurate and yet conservative.
So you have to know how much is left from the loan too, that you know how much principal.
And you have to know how much is left. How much is left, right? Well, we could say how much is left, but I was doing it how much is left as opposed to how much is right. I may not have anything to do with it. All right. And again, if they have the stuff that they can show you, it will tell you. Now, at this point, what we're doing is not giving them the precise, what's called a HUD-1, right? We're not doing the uniform settlement statement. We're giving them a rough estimate. Now, this should be done more than once. So we might be doing it when we're talking to them about selling their house. We might be doing it again when offers come in, because there may be a difference in the offer price and the price that we told them we got to list it for. And then after that, it's sort of up to the title company. Now, there are many title companies, and they all have different software. I'm just saying, let's see, they all will be happy to give you a login, and I have cards from Old Republic Title for those of you that are, and that they will give you access to this website, and it doesn't cost anything at all. Now, notice, and so what you're going to find as you research this, that all the title companies have something like this in varying degrees. I'm doing the web-based version because it'll show on the screen. And they have a version that works on a phone, but I hear that ORTC, Old Republic Title Company, sometimes it doesn't work on an iPad. However, Chicago Title And just by way of disclaimer, when I was active, I probably used every title company at least once. But primarily, I use Chicago Title and Old Republic Title. I'm just saying, right? I'm not saying that they're special, but there's a whole bunch of title companies that don't have any cool stuff, right? You understand? I'm not going to go through the list because I'm recording this and they might be mad at me. But there's a list of them that basically are going to tell you, we'll do a good job with your escrow, and do you have tools, do you have stuff that I can play with, and websites I can use on, and then we really don't have any stuff, right? So, and it doesn't hurt to check them all out. We're doing Old Republic. You ought to also try Chicago Title, right? And if you need their contact information, I'll give it to you. Now, notice as we are looking at the Old Republic Title Company, online net sheets is right there. Do you need to register in order to use it? The answer is no. Anybody that wanders to the Old Republic Title Company website could do a net sheet. And the reason that we're using the online is because it will auto-calculate a whole lot more stuff, and you don't have to print out rates, and it's a pain. So the reason why you want an account is because if you use the online net sheet, you can't save it. You can print it, you could email it, it'll make a PDF, but you can't save it. So let's say the seller says, what will it look like at 8:25? You can't just go in and change it, and you have to start all over from the beginning. Whereas if you register an account, you could set up a net sheet for a particular property and save it and make changes, and everything would be easier. The fee navigator is something that will tell you what the escrow, title, and other fees are, and who pays is their version. Chicago Title has a website called the Chicago Title Transfer Tax. If you were to Google search Chicago Title Transfer Tax, you'd find their website, which also has a sort of an interactive, kind of a cool looking thing. But this is the same thing. It'll tell you who pays what. So if a buyer is buying in San Leandro, the rules in San Leandro are different than the rules in Santa Clara as to what is being paid for by whom. And one of the annoying things that, for speaking as a listing agent, one of the annoying things is when somebody makes an offer on your listing and they've messed up all the fees. By the way, San Mateo County has a different fee structure than Santa Clara County for who pays what. So that would tell you. And blank documents are a whole bunch of blank documents. So we're going to log in, and you should see a picture of whoever the rep is. That's Rita. And then here's a whole bunch of different things that you could do, right? We're not going to go through all of it. And I'm going to show you there are some, and I'll write them down. There are some apps that you can get in order to use their apps, which work on phones better than tablets. I haven't tried it on my Android tablet yet. The apps, you have to have an account here in order for the apps to work, because the app is going to ask you for your account, and you need an account. And in order to get an account, you need somebody from Old Republic Title to set you up an account. And I did bring business cards for people that, if you want to. Whew. All right, so open a new order means you have a listing. And what all the title reps are hoping is that you'll remember who gave you the cool tools that you used, right? Open current order. Current orders, that's where you can check on them and look at your history and account settings and disclosures, log into REI Source, which are property profiles. However, I had a nice talk with Rita. I've been around longer than Rita, but that's and we don't use the property profile system as much because Realist and Realtor Property Resource will do a lot of it. My sales, we don't care about that. We don't want to email the escrow officer. We don't email. We want to do online net sheets. Isn't that right? Isn't that why we're here? So I'm going to click on that, and this is going to come up, and it's going to say borrower, buyer, or seller. Now, the buyer one, and first of all, borrowers are for loan agents, right? Somebody who's doing a loan. Refis, right? That would be, and you don't wanna do that, right? So, do you understand refis go through escrow? Did you know that? A refi goes through escrow. And there's some title insurance, because the lender has an Alta policy. So even refis involve escrow and title. Anyhow, so that's an option. Buyer net sheets are a more dangerous thing to do. I clicked on, no, it's not at all, went, so let me just let it save. Okay, you can save the site. Are you happy now? Buyer net sheets are more difficult to do. You could give somebody, and the reality is it's really a buyer's cost analysis, right? To understand what are the total costs that the buyer is going to need in order to buy the property. And there are some general costs that all buyers have that we could estimate. However, most of the costs that a buyer incurs in buying property are loan related, right? And so oftentimes we let the lender do that one, right? And the lender is required to do a good faith estimate. Notice they actually have that's what GFE stands for, a good faith estimate calculator. So the buyer one, use at your own risk, right? Because you may be doing one for a particular, what is a general plain vanilla loan, and they have another one, and there's points and there's
So
things.
It's a buyer consultation, so we should just take it out, or, you know?
I don't know if in the buyer's consultation, is there a net sheet?
Yeah, you're supposed to fill in there,
I know which buyer's consultation is that?
Keller Williams,
Really?
yeah,
No, I've looked at it, I don't see a buyer cost analysis.
there's one in there.
I've looked at it and I'll look at it again. But,
So you wanna do it, are we gonna do a seller's one then?
we're gonna do a seller's one.
Okay.
We'll talk about a buyer's cost analysis at a different time. I'm not promising anything, because you won't show up if I join. So we're gonna say this is for Sally,
Seller's seller.
all right, Sally Seller. And we could put in an address. Now, I don't know, does anybody have an address that they would like me to put in?
Where's my address?
Well, or, there's an escrow, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, let's use, 5595 Makati Circle.
Ah, beautiful. So, what we're going to do, this is our infolink, MLS listings. Our infolink is what they used to be called. And we could go to Realist. And the reason that we're doing this is we just wanna, there's one little snippet of information that we might need to know, right? Just a snippet of information that we might need to know. And so what I'm going to do is put that in here, and then, what is the address again?
5595 Makati Circle.
MAKATICEIRCLE, and zipper code?
Is it, 95, I think it's 123.
Yeah, there's Makati's in 124.
Is it?
123, all right,
That's
so,
it?
is that it?
Yeah.
It's a garage, that's all that it
It's a
is.
that's all he's buying, it's a garage.
All right, and I'll explain later why we wanted to know. And by the way, the property profile, which is what the title companies used to, well, they would still give it to you, basically is everything in all these tabs that they printed and put in a little binder. Right? All of this stuff. And we'll see why we want to know what's on this page later. All right, so the address was 5595 MAKATICIRCLE, California, and we put in the city San Jose, and the zipper code, notice it's reacting to all this. Now, what it just did is, it would allow me to just type it in. What it just did is, because we put in the city of San Jose, the city of San Jose has a city transfer tax, but not all cities do. The program knows which cities do and which cities don't. So rather than having to look up and say, geez, Sunnyvale, does Sunnyvale have a city transfer tax or not, right? You put in the city and it will, it does that, thing. So what would be the sales price?
Sales price $491.
491,000. Beauty. Now, that's a homeowner association?
Yes.
Okay, well, why not? Just why, now we're doing this from the point of view of the seller. We're probably not gonna be clicking the box, click here if it's a short sale, or if it's owned by a lender, we're not gonna do that. Closing date would be,
428,
all right, 4/28, so why don't we just for,
giggles.
purposes, we're gonna give it, to, how about the 22nd of May?
Sure.
Okay. Sales commission, now, we're doing this from the point of view of the seller. So if it was a full boat commission, that would be 6%. If it were a half boat, it might be 5%. Now, if we hit tab, notice it says show commission splits. The reason it does that is it allows you to put in what the listing office is getting, what the selling office is getting, so that the owner doesn't freak out and think you're getting everything that's listed there, right? Because sometimes they freak out. And so we're gonna do that and do that, and it might not be that. It might not be that, but we're going to assume it's that. Is the seller giving any credit to the buyer? Probably not, but they could, right? So are they in this case?
1645.
1645, real numbers, I like that. Now, if I were, by the way, I'm gonna remove that, because that would be something, this is something we're doing when an offer comes in, right? And so and by the way, it might be important for you to have your computer, or if you bring them into the office, and have this website open, because when the seller says, well, if I give them 1645, how much am I gonna net?
1645 less.
Right, I know, but actually, it's a slightly different, because it changes
It changes
title
all
insurance,
over.
it changes, a whole bunch of different things. A
Okay.
whole bunch of different things change
we
when you
can
do
take
that.
that out for now.
So at this point, we're not assuming we're gonna give the credit, at the beginning, we're not assuming we're gonna give the buyer any credit. Will the seller pay for a home warranty? Now, I often was, I was good at getting sellers to put a home warranty on their property while it was listed, in addition to providing one for the buyer. And I would explain to them that real estate agents' errors and omissions insurance, the malpractice insurance, is based partly on home warranties. And if you, by the way, as an agent in our office, you need to know that if you do everything, and you're representing a client, and everything includes a home warranty, there's no deductible if you get sued. Right? If you don't have a home warranty on the property and you get sued and we lose, you're paying a deductible. Now, the reason I would tell that story to sellers, I would say, why do you think that the insurance companies give us a better deal if we have a home warranty? Because there's a lot lower chance of being sued. Would you like, Mr. Seller, to reduce your chance of being sued when the escrow is over? Huh? Would you like that? Right? You know, and they go, yeah. And so I would say, why don't we just pay for give them a home warranty, right? Plus, I would tell them you ought to put the home warranty on your property right now, in case something breaks while it's listed, when all these people are flushing the toilets and playing with things. So, and I usually would round up. So I'm going to put in $400. Right? It's probably more like $350 or something like that. Balance left on primary mortgage. Now, if you use the Old Republic, some of these things that are up here, they could figure that out. But we're assuming that the seller, you understand the credit reporting bureaus know how much your current loan balance is. Huh? They know. And if you are a big company and have access to the credit reporting bureaus, you can find out how much anybody owes, right? So we're assuming they are going to tell us honestly at this point. And by the way, what's going to happen is that the title company is going to contact the lender and ask for a payoff demand, which is going to give the exact number, right, that's needed to pay off this loan. Any guess on this one? How about 350?
Sure.
How about 350?
Presuming that they had some money down and.
Right, why not, right? And so let's say, what interest rate we want to ask them that, right? What interest rate, if they say, I don't know, people will say, I don't know, put in 5,
Okay.
right?
I was gonna say 7, but all right.
Well, it depends on when if they probably, if they had a 7% loan, they refinance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
So, do they have a prepayment penalty? If they don't know their interest rate, they certainly don't know that. But we're not going to, we're not going to sweat that. balance left on the second mortgage, interest on the second mortgage, prepayment penalty on the second mortgage. Again, here comes the fun, right? If you're wondering when is this going to get fun and interesting, pretty much now. Right, pretty much now. Property taxes. So why did I want to go and peek at Realist? What piece of information does Realist have that, so this, by the way, we notice Realist says that it was listed for $475. It knows a lot of stuff about the property. It knows the owner's name and billing. They know the year. I don't know what that is. Tax information and assessment 2014. Assessment for the total was $389,000, and your 57 assessed value change. Maybe it's not going to tell me what I wanted to know. Special assessments, sewer, wow, Oak Grove. So there's $456.58 in special assessments. And does it say what the annual tax is? It says assessment.
Tax year, tax total.
Where does it say?
Right on your mouse, no?
Oh, here it is.
100.
Total tax, I'm sorry, it's been one of the,
No,
right?
five-
So 5145, okay, let me write that down, all right. 5145. Now, I, by the way, would practice before you did this on your own, like I should have been doing. 456, 58, 456, 58. All right, so why is this important? Why is this important? So the property taxes, we could do a percentage or amount. So we're going to say 5145 is the property taxes. The property tax term could be, that's an annual number. And then this is the property tax paid to date. Now, eventually, people will lie about this, but the title company's eventually going to figure it out. Like very quickly. Did you pay, say,
Yes.
November, December, February, and April?
No, darn.
Right? So did they pay when it was due or before it was delinquent?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now we're past April 10th, correct?
Yeah.
So are we assuming that they paid?
Yes.
So how long would they have paid for? To what point in the year?
Until November. Well, yeah.
There was that license question.
Uh,
Wrong.
the tax year begins on what day?
Oh, June 1st.
Or what other day?
July 1st.
July 1st. How about that?
All right.
Ooh,
All right.
got one right.
So,
I understood this was not going to be on the final.
yeah. Well, you said you wanted me to talk about how to do a net sheet,
No, it's good.
right? So what is this going to mean in terms of prorations? Who owes who? Does the buyer owe the seller or the seller owe the buyer?
The buyer
The seller
owes the
owes
seller.
the buyer for the escrow date. I mean, it
We
depends
have, we have opposite answers.
Do you want to be the tiebreaker?
on. You decide.
You decide.
Because they're already paid, the seller already paid them.
Yes, I'm afraid Johnny's right.
So it
I
was the
know.
buyer, right?
The buyer owes the seller. The seller has paid
I meant it the right
to the end
way,
of
I'm
June.
sorry.
That's okay. The seller is paid to the end of the June, but the
Yeah.
seller's not going to be there to the end of June.
Mhm.
Right? How long is the seller? We put in the close date. Right? Do you see that? So what it's going to do is calculate the taxes. Now, if we were in the beginning of the year, we'd have to do anyhow, what does the homeowner association dues?
415.
415. Put that in. Do you know what their due date is?
Must be something
First, I
special.
think.
The first. So the next one is due
5-1.
5/1. So this is fun, isn't it?
Presuming that they paid
Right.
while they're in escrow.
Is it possible that they haven't been paying their homeowner association dues for the last couple of years?
It's not now, because we just checked.
Yeah. And so they're due monthly, and homeowner association due date, and the next one, their next installment, homeowner dues, next installment, it's still $415, right? We don't really, I'm gonna put that in just because I felt like it. All right. So now we're doing this, now this one, I'm sort of doing a mixture of stuff, right? For example, what I would be doing is anticipating when we might sell it and when it might close. Because when I'm doing a net sheet at a listing appointment, I'm anticipating, I don't actually have a transaction. And we're sort of doing one where Johnny knows when it's going to close and he knows certain things. And so this would be more what we would be doing when we had an offer and the offer has a close of escrow date. At the listing appointment, we don't have a close of escrow date, right? Is that right? But we're just winging this. I think you're getting the gist of it, right? As much as you want to. All right. So what other things would be a debit to a seller? What is something that, I don't know, the law says the seller's supposed to provide?
A termite?
No law says the seller has to do that. I mean, it has to be done on FHA and VA.
Title?
Title, think of fire, floods, and earthquakes.
Yeah.
There's sometimes called the geologic, sometimes called the natural hazard disclosure.
Oh, okay.
All right, now, if I were talking to a seller, I would be telling him, we want the whole package, right? We want the geologic, the natural hazard disclosures, the tax, and we want environmental. And,
HOA docs.
well, that's another thing. Okay, why don't we not, so 125. Do you know what the HOA docs were in this transaction?
No, say what, how much do they normally go for?
300 to 500?
Okay, sure, 300.
All right, so who would know what the HOA docs would cost?
The seller.
The HOA.
HOA.
Oh, they.
I'm sorry. Now, in some homeowner associations, by the way, have a website that'll tell you all this stuff. And there's a form that needs to be filled out. But could we just ignore the homeowner association documents for now? But how about this? I'm going to click add, and I'm going to say HOA docs, and I'm going to put in.
But why don't we put in the chimney roof and all that?
I'm not. Does it look like I'm done?
Okay.
All right.
But that's
So.
something you would do, right?
Right, now, if I'm talking to the seller, I would suggest that they get a property inspection. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
How much is a property inspection?
350?
It depends on how big the house is,
Oh, yeah.
right? So one of the companies, and I don't necessarily like these people, but they offer everything all on one page, right? And so if you wanted to get a home inspection, so how many square feet is this property?
1332.
1332. So up to 2,000 square feet, they charge $455 if it's billed, $415 if you pay. So why don't we just say $450 is a property inspection, okay? And then now I'd be telling the sellers, we really want to get this because when the buyer makes an offer, if we had all of this stuff, things that are disclosed cannot be renegotiated. If we don't have this, they're going to renegotiate the price. This is the biggest reason my escrows fall apart. It really isn't going to cost that much. How much does a termite inspection cost?
125?
How much?
125?
Now, in SPCTL, by the way, this varies a lot. These people who I told you I don't really like too much, if it's up to 2,000 square feet, are going to charge someplace between $225 if you pay it right at the time to $265. Let's put in the $265. What we really would like is that when the seller gets the actual HUD-1 and it closes, that they walk away with more money,
Only a little.
but not less. Right? If it says a lower number than you told them, you've got some explaining to do. If it tells them a little bit more,
You get a referral.
they may be not as angry. So we've done a property inspection, we did a termite inspection, there's a roof, All right, so if we want to do a roof inspection, that would be, let's say, 125. And some companies that do the property inspection say they'll do a roof inspection too. I'm not really too sure how good they are, but some of them have value packages, onward and onward, right? So what we want to do, and so we've added them all in, right? And I didn't do a chimney, but does everybody, you get the
What
idea?
would the chimney be?
That's a new
But
law.
I would guess about 125 to 130. These guys don't do chimneys, maybe 150.
Can I ask you a small
Yeah.
thing? It's a new law where, if you're planning to sell your property, you need to close off the chimney or something, the
Fireplaces.
Fireplace, yeah, that's a
the
new-
proposal is not.
It's a proposal, it's not a law yet.
is not a. this
Not a
is
law
not
yet.
Right?
No, not a law yet.
Not law, okay.
Not a law yet. So,
Is there such a thing as a pool inspection?
yes, there's pool
Okay.
inspections,
Okay.
absolutely. Pool inspections, spa
Spa
inspections,
inspections?
electrical inspections.
Okay.
There's
Very, very-
septic inspections,
septic,
there's
right.
well
Ventilation,
inspections, there's, I've had an asbestos inspection done. There's radon gas inspections, there's mold inspections,
Glad I asked.
there's lead-based paint inspections.
Huh.
There's, you could do a what?
Is there an end to inspections? So
The-
many-
there- there-
Would you recommend if it's an older house, we have to disclose the lead-based paint? but-
There's already forms that are in it that says that if it's built before 1978, it probably has lead in the paint, which isn't going to hurt you if you don't hurt it. If you leave it alone, it'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
Right? So there's more release of it when you try to remove it. So it's just, you've done all that. I wouldn't, dig into
Go
it.
in there.
I had a buyer once that wanted to do an asbestos inspection, right? Because they read the book, they're in the book. And so I said, this is gonna be cool. I hadn't seen one, right? I've been in the business a really long time, never saw an asbestos inspection. And this guy shows up and he's got this machine and it sort of looks like the old Geiger counter kind of things. And he's walking around and it's making noise and there's asbestos everywhere. I just, if that freaks you out, don't get an asbestos inspection. And they were like saying, oh my God, there's asbestos in the house. And he said, this isn't much. So we walked out on the street and he held it down. The sidewalk and the asphalt in the street, it went off with asbestos, right? So just don't walk on the streets, right?
Thanks.
Just don't get on the sidewalk. So, but right now we're talking about what would a seller do? You might have a foundation inspection, right? If it's an older house and there's cracks in it. Now, a lot of this will come from the property inspection, right? The property inspector is going to say, the electrical panel looks bad, you got to get it in there, this looks bad. But at least at this point, we've done what we need to do.
Okay.
And what we're now going to do is go down, we could reset, save as a new net sheet, or calculate. I feel calculating. And now that we've done that, it gives me all this, including all of that stuff, right? So the seller's going to walk away with $109,278.96. By the way, when I was at a listing appointment, what I would be doing is when we ran the price and we ran a net sheet, I'd say, how does that look? Can you get to where you want to go with that amount of money? And if they say yes, I'd say, great, let's get moving. All right? And then there's a bunch of disclaimers and things like that. And what could you do with this? You could print it out, export to Excel, or email the net sheet. Now, just a caution, if you export it to Excel, which I'll do just to show you that it's a bad idea maybe. If you export it to Excel, and some of you might be thinking, what do you mean it's a bad idea? It's a great idea. I love Excel. How could it be a bad idea to export it to Excel? First of all, notice what it shows, 0. 0, 0, 0, 0. And the reason is because we haven't enabled editing, right? Because Excel can have macros and things that automatically run, and so Microsoft thinks that you're a terrorist smuggling in some secret, I don't know. But we're going to click on enable editing, and then notice now it gives us the number. Now, the problem with this is if the seller says, well, what happens if I put in 515, it will change the number down here, but it doesn't recalculate all of those specifics, which are all based upon the price, right? Is it possible, now those of you that know Excel know the answer to this already, to have a spreadsheet like this that had those formulas, whatever they were, built into them, and the answer is sure. The hard one, though, is the title insurance and escrow fees. And if you looked at them, I work for a guy who is, besides selling real estate, he had a PhD in organic chemistry, right, which is normal in real estate. And he would sit and figure out what the factors were for looking at a whole bunch of different price points and with the escrow and title fees, and he worked out his own formula for calculating escrow and title. But you'd always have to throw in an extra $500 at the end because it varies by title company, right? You understand? Not a lot, but a little. And why do that? I assume you have better things to do with your time than to create your own Excel spreadsheet.
Reverse engineer.
Right, but you do. But some people might say, "Oh, that looks good. I want that." Right. What else?
The
So
most expensive.
title does the buyer, or because we did nothing with the.
There are title. It's automatically calculated.
Oh, okay.
See, if we go down here, what we're going to see: broker's commission, home warranty, prop taxes. Notice it did. The seller's going to get a credit for 557, right?
Mm-hmm.
Credit from, yeah. Next installment, we're not doing that. Homeowner association dues. So because we're closing on the 22nd, the seller's gonna owe some money for the homeowner association dues for that month. Next installment, whatever, 415. I don't know if I should have put that in. But homeowner's title insurance policy, and it gives a date because it's subject to change, $1,551. So there are 2 title policies in a typical residential real estate transaction. One title policy the seller gives the buyer, and that's called standard title insurance. Seller gives the buyer standard. That's in Santa Clara County. In Alameda County, I think they split it 50-50. In San Mateo County, I think the buyer pays. I'm not really sure. I tried to avoid selling real estate in those counties. But in Santa Clara County, the seller pays for the buyer's title insurance. But the second title insurance, which is called ALTA, which stands for the American Land Title Association, is a lender policy, which the borrower pays. So the seller in Santa Clara County is going to pay the buyer's standard policy of title insurance, but the buyer, that's why there's another title insurance charge on another sheet that's been done for the buyer. So I guess I didn't need to do the dues next installment.
That's
I
another
already
license
did that.
questions on my test.
Let me just check that out. And what I'm going to do is calculate. See, I made a change. And I went,
Oh, you got a red thing at the top.
please enter a valid amount for homeowner association dues. Oh, it didn't, oh, I took the last one out. All right. How about that? Are you happy now?
Right.
All right, now I'm gonna
Calculate.
calculate. All right, I just took off 4, but it's not bad to have a little bit of padding. Not bad. So, and it brings out all these miscellaneous items, assuming the seller's gonna pay for them. It knows what the transfer tax is, the county transfer tax. And,
Wow, most expensive
cool.
thing is us.
the most valuable
Valuable.
investment. I've actually had a client call me up and he said, "You're getting paid more money than I am." And I said, "No, I'm not." I said, your money you took out of the property to buy that house in Sacramento, remember? Huh? You've already gotten your money and have spent it.
Oh, you took it
That's
on your
why
credit?
it says that. I was like, oh. All right. So, could you practice doing this
Yeah,
a couple of times?
sure.
So we can create the free account on this?
Yes.
Okay.
It's $5. You have to give me, I'll give it to the,
Cash.
Alright.
you give me the $5
You can give me
and,
$7.50.
So I can get that from any,
What?
Ocean Republic, I can get an account, I should put the one in I have a contact with, or?
Yeah, OR.
So I have one